All right, here we go with the second half of our unit. We're going to start out with today, multiplying fractions and mixed numbers. Have down this goal before moving on. All right, here is your warm-up. Let's have you multiply. There's 5 problems to try. Do your best. Come back when you're done. Here are the answers you should have gotten for the warm-up. Hopefully it wasn't too hard for you just doing multiplying. I honestly feel this way, and raise your hand if you agree. We've done so much with multiplying and dividing over the last few years. Sometimes that adding and subtracting just seems harder than multiplying and dividing. Am I right? Okay, at least I'm more honest. Now that we got our brains warmed up, let's do some more with multiplying and multiplying of fractions. Trust me, I think you'll find this to be easier than adding and subtracting. All right, so when you learned multiplication, remember that multiplication is repeated addition over and over and over. For example, 4 times 5 is really 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5. We can kind of use that same thought with fractions as well, that when we're multiplying whole numbers by a fraction, we're using the same method. So if I had 3 times 1/4, I also want you to think about that as how many 1/4s you have, which is 3 of them. So it's 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4. That'll give you 3/4. Do you see a pattern with the 1/4 part and the whole number in relation to the product you get of 3/4? I'm going to want you to tell me what pattern you see, because it may help you to understand how to multiply these fractions with mixed numbers. Have this down before moving on. Your choice if you do the drawing or not, but for sure, put down the multiplication sentence. So you may have noticed this already, but the one thing you could tell with the 3 times 1/4 is the denominator stayed the same, the numerator changed. Well, there's another way to kind of think about multiplying with fractions. Remember, a whole number always has a denominator of 1, because that's how many 3's you have. Each number is a whole, so you have 3 wholes. So really what you're doing when you're multiplying a fraction by a whole number, you're giving that whole number a denominator of 1, and that allows you to kind of do the multiplication a little quicker. So 3 is the same as 3 over 1. Maybe that can help you when moving forward with these problems. All right, let's get into some practice. So the first one I have up here that I'm going to want you to put down is example 1. We're going to multiply 7 times 1/9. So the first method I'm going to show you is the method that is practice if you struggle with your multiplication facts. So the repeated addition, remember, is multiplying, or adding, the fraction of 1/9 the amount of times you see a whole number. So 1/9 plus 1/9 plus 1/9 plus 1/9 plus 1/9 plus 1/9 plus 1/9. If you add that up, the denominators don't change, but the numerator is 7. Now, you may also start recognizing, well, I could just do the 7 over 1 to get 7/9. If this seems like a method you're going to use, copy it down. If not, you should probably copy down this method. So this is the multiplication method. Again, as I said, you can think of the whole number of 8 as 8 over 1. Now you're looking at 2 fractions. Although 8 over 1 is an improper fraction, it's still a fraction. So as you can see here, now we're multiplying straight across. So that's the difference from adding and subtracting. You're going to multiply straight across the numerators and then straight across the denominators. So if we did 8 times 2, 8 times 2 gives you 16, and 1 times 3 gives you 3. Well, since we're dealing with a whole number, you know that it's just going to keep the denominator. Now we can't keep 16/3 as an answer. We're going to have to turn that into a mixed number. So we see how many times 3 can go into 16. Now I know 3 times 5 gets me close. 3 times 5 is 15. So when I subtract, remember that our remainder becomes our numerator, and the denominator was 3. It doesn't change. So that's how we get 5 1/3 as our simplest form. Now, if this seems like the method that you're going to use more than just the repeated addition, copy this one down. Okay, I'm looking at 8 multiplication problems up here, and I'm going to be the mean guy here, and I want you to do 8 multiplication problems. So do all of them. Come back when you got the answers. Don't forget your answers need to be in simplest form. So make sure you're finding the smallest numerator and denominator or turning an improper into a mixed number if need. Good luck. Oh, and before you start, just one other thing. Remember, make all the whole numbers, if you're going to do the multiplication version, over 1. That will make it a little simpler on your brain because it's looking at fraction by fraction. Okay. All right, so don't forget when you're taking an improper fraction turning into a mixed number, sometimes you are going to end up with a whole number if the denominator can go into the numerator an equal amount of times with no remainder. So that's how for 3 and for 7 and for 8, they all come out to be whole number answers. That's okay. So here's what you should have had. The nice thing is, besides simplifying our mixed numbers, we really didn't have to simplify anything else beyond that. So hopefully you got the same answers as I did. All right, let's get into example 2 now. So there are going to be times when you have to solve for the expression when you have a variable like 4 times x. Remember, sometimes you're given problems like this, which we call plug and chug problems, which means we're plugging in whatever it says x equals for our problem. So here we have 4 times x. Remember that what you're going to do is you're going to first write the expression, and then it says substitute 1/10 for x. We also say that, again, as a plug and chug. So we replace x with 1/10. So again, we can make the denominator 1 for the whole number, and that brings us down to here. So now you're doing 4 times 1, which is 1, and 1 times 10, which is 10. And you should recognize 4 and 10, your numerator and denominator are both even numbers. So what do you do with those two? You divide them both by 2, since they're even. And that will help us simplify. 4 divided by 2 is 2, and 10 divided by 2 is 5. So there is that simplification that you still need to do. So 2/5 is the answer. Copy this down with the notes on the side before moving on. So here's another one just to see. We have 4x again, but we're going to replace x wherever you see x with 3/8. So we only have one problem. So you write the expression, then you plug and chug, and don't forget to make the denominator 1. And from here then you multiply across. 4 times 3 is 12, 1 times 8 is 8. And you're going, you can't have a higher numerator than a denominator. So we're going to have to find out how many times 8 goes into 12. And we know 8 goes into 12 one time. And when we look at our remainder, you have a remainder of 4. So 1 and 4/8. And we know that we can simplify that down to 1 and 1/2, since half of 8 is 4. The other way that they show here is they simplified the 12 and 8 first. So you can divide both of these by 2 since they're both even numbers. 12 becomes 6, 8 becomes 4, and again they're even numbers, so you can divide those again by 2. 6 becomes 3, 4 becomes 2. 2 goes into 3 once with 1 left over. So that's how you get that too. Your choice if you want to write this one down or not. I don't think you need to unless you really want to. So here we are. We have some multiplication problems. So it says we're going to be evaluating 8x for all of these, and we'll tell you what to plug in for x. So the x's are going to change, but what won't change in all these problems is the fact that you're multiplying it by 8. So remember, and I'll do 2 of these for you before you do the rest, remember that you're going to multiply, so you have to plug and chug, and rewrite it 8 times 1/2. Remember to make the denominator of the whole number a 1. And from here, we do 8 times 1, which is 8. 1 times 2, which is 2. And how many times does 2 go into 8? That would be 4. So you actually get a whole number of 4 for number 22. For 23, again, we're just plugging in 8 times 3/4. So make the denominator of 8 a 1. 8 times 3 is 24. And 1 times 4 is 4. And again, 4 will go into 24 evenly, so our answer is a whole number of 6. Go ahead and do 24 through 29. Come back when you're done. Hopefully you have the right answers or your answers match what I have on the board. Good luck. All right, so hopefully you're able to finish off the problems and get the same answers that I did. First couple worked out really well that we had whole numbers with our remainder when we simplified them. Okay, feeling really good with this. I'm glad. If you're struggling with it, make sure you come and say, hey, I don't get this, and what I'm struggling with is, and if you tell me that, we can work together to try to get some practice. Don't forget, too, you notice that after you answer those questions, you can always hit rewatch. Go back and rewatch the section if you need to. And it wouldn't be fun if I didn't throw some word problems in for this example. So again, word problems can be answered the same way. You can just look at the problem. So here it says there are 25 students in the music club. Of those students, 3/5 are also in the band. So how many music club students are in the band? Simply put, we just have to multiply 3/5 times 25. 3 times 25 gives you 75, and 5 times 1 gives you 5. So how many times does 5 go into 75? You have to divide to find the simple answer of 15. So there's 15 students that are in band and are in music club. So copy this down if you think you need to. All right, so I think what I'm going to have you do here, since there's a lot of extra practice, all I want you to do is I want you to do this problem, number 49. The rest of the problems are there if you think you need extra time. So go ahead and do this word problem, come back when you're done. I know my work is all over the place, but what you should have seen is that you have to multiply 55 times 3/5. You end up with 165 fifths, and 5 goes into 165 33 times. So she ended up spending $33 on that pair of shoes. Hopefully I got that right. All right, here are your box of thought questions. Take your time to answer these. And let's use full sentences. I've seen some people start to get a little lazy with their work. I want to see full sentences. I may ask you to redo it again when you come to me if you don't. And here's your quiz. All 5 questions in their glory. Make sure you're answering them in simplest form. And take your time, show your work so you don't make any mistakes. And that's it for our lesson, first multiplication one. Hopefully you found it to be a little easier because now you can multiply across the top and the bottom. We'll see you next time. Thanks for joining me.